And welcome to another exciting episode of the Super Fantastic Exchange. Guys, I am sitting on the edge of my seat because I get to talk to none other than John Selindh. You guys give it up for John. Can you hear him, John? They're clapping.
Oh, yeah, it's loud.
It's pretty amazing. John, thank you so much for joining me today. In full transparency, I got to work with you before. And you've always been an inspiration to me just because I've always loved your style, your leadership, and just kind of your heart about everything. So I'm really excited that I get to connect with you today. So John, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. No, and thanks for letting me join you today, Gary. This is fun because we have a little history together.
Yeah.
Personally, I've been married for 35 years this year to my bride, Tammy. And we have 4 adult children, very proud of, fun group, and then and a pit bull that lives with us at home. So that's the personal side. Professionally, I've been blessed in this industry. I worked for a lot of different companies and seen a lot of different styles. So I've over the years led marketing and often training for on the West Coast companies like Con Am and Irvine Company. Also Western National, VRE, and out of Texas. We worked together at Camden, ran the marketing there. Also with Capstone and Kairoy. It's been really blessed to work for a lot of great companies. And I've also been on the vendor side. Worked with Valet Living for a while, and now currently with Triple R Marketing in a business development role.
That's incredible. And what an incredible experience. One, been married for 35 years. And I love that you don't call her your wife, you call her your bride. I think that's a really intentional point. So I picked up on that. And I think that's incredibly amazing that you call her that. And then 2, I love you've got such experience, such a breadth of experience from different owner management companies. Plus you have the perspective from the vendor side as well. So what a valuable experience that I think you can mesh together so you really can see multiple angles, multiple filters and perspectives from both angles. I think that's such a valuable gift that you've got through your experience and now wisdom. So amazing. Now, John, you've always been inspirational to me because again, as I mentioned before, I loved your heart. I loved your leadership, the way you did things. And so for me, people who inspire me, I always want to connect with and ask, well, what inspires you? How is it that you are so inspiring? And so I reached out to you before and you shared with me some points for the things that inspire you. And the first one I'm like really intrigued with. And so you called it the big shift at the top of your career. What does that mean? And how did that end up inspiring you?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, I worked for a lot of different companies, been blessed. And several years ago, at a big point in my career, I had actually it was kind of I had a small surgery I'd been putting off for some time. I decided to do it. I got the 1 in 1,000 that got botched and ended up on a life flight to UCLA. And they're telling my wife, he has no brain activity. People don't usually make it through this. Very, very intense time. And so anyway, made it through by God's grace. Here I am, and but it was almost a year and a half recovery time that I wasn't able to really work. And so it does. Obviously, you have a lot of time in recovery and in bed and doing some physical therapy. You have a lot of time to think really and look at your values. And the great thing is, I think my true north, the things that really were the foundation, I guess, for what I believe in and inspire me really didn't change. But some of the things that I think are more peripheral, if you will, that you kind of, look and say, these things that I valued are not quite as important as I thought they were, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a big difference from me, how I viewed my career even.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine when you're, faced with life and death, it really does put weight on what you value. And, being out of commission, if you will, it gives you time to reflect and really think what's valuable to you, what really means, what's important to you. And I love that, that is a shift for you and it created some inspiration for you, but it didn't stop you. I think that's such an incredible story. And you mentioned a little bit about your true north and that shouldn't change, but your true north doesn't change. But I like how you said, and one of your inspirational points is our why, or what inspires us, changes or should change over time. So tell us a little bit about that. As you get wiser, life situation evolves. How does that inspire you? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, no, it does change. And a quote I like, is change is inevitable, but progress isn't. And so, hopefully as we get a little bit older and have exposed to different experiences, we get a little bit wiser and things evolve in a positive way. So, I look back, on my career, Gary, it's funny because early on, right, it was all about me. It was about, I wanted to experience a lot of things, see a lot of things. Really didn't care about the career. I quit a job once just to go backpacking in Europe for a few months, right? It's just like, let's just go see the world and do things. Get married, and my wife kind of evolved a little bit. I was like, well, we've got to build a home. I've got someone else I'm responsible to and for.
Yeah. And
so it did kind of evolve into, I need to get more focused on what I'm going to do with my life professionally, and how that all works. Once we start having kids, you were there. It's like that changes. You start to see yourself through your kids' eyes. You start to think, I really want to provide for them financially and be able to give them opportunities and really be that dad that really is there for them. And so that kind of changes how you view things. I wish I could say I did everything perfectly. Oh, no. You go through seasons where you're learning and evolving, and but that definitely, you'll go through that point. Now, it's funny, I mentioned, through the surgery I went through and a lot of different things, I've almost come full circle. So my wife and I are more like at a point in life where it's like, let's just have some fun now, right? The work is less crucial. In fact, it's funny, when I took my last position here and talking to the owner there, I said, really the money is not as important to me. I need time off to go see my kids. I need to be able to, have some freedom in that, work in a great culture with fun people, and the money, that'll come. It's not as important to me. So.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful, because a lot of us, we get so wrapped up in our careers that we lose sight of everything outside of it, or the peripheral world outside of a career. And and you said, it takes, age and things evolve, and then you realize there's more to just that bubble of your career. There's more outside of that, and that's family is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's an important piece of kind of developing your why and the things that are important to you, and understanding there's a balance, or if you want to call it a balance or something else, but you have to understand there's more to your life than what's just in that bubble of your career.
Yeah, and it's too easy, I think, especially maybe mid-career, to let that, your life, here's your career, your career is supposed to support your life, and to sometimes let it creep to where your life is secondary to your career, right? You let just all the demands of travel and, wanting to excel and do well for your company, which is all, fine and good, but it can take your focus away and start to mess up your priorities a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, unfortunately for a lot of us, myself included, we realize that later, because, as we're kind of coming through the ranks, if you will, we're just so focused. And like you said, we want to excel at our careers because we have those responsibilities and everything. And so we just focus the majority of our time and energy on the career, not the family.
Yeah, no, it's can happen way too easily. And I also, Gary, too, it's interesting too, because I've worked for a number of different companies, and there's some cultures, some companies that make it much easier, if you will, to have that balance, right? They understand the long-term focus on people is really good business. And I've worked for other companies where it's like, we're going to run you hard, right? And until you scream, and that's how they do things. So it is interesting that different companies do it differently too.
Yeah. And it's important to recognize that, what kind of culture are you working in? And, you got to have your own set of core values to match the core values of the company that you're working with as well.
I think you hit it on the head there, right? You need to know who you are and what's important to you, and understand that about the company before you jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't have your own true north, as you call it, and you rely on your company's true north or core values, then you kind of get dragged along by default, and that's where you kind of get buried.
It's funny, Gary. One of the companies I worked for a very short time for, I remember in the interview process, asking a question. So tell me about your company culture here. And I remember the guy looked at, kind of went, we have a culture. And that was kind of his answer. Oh yeah, it's a good culture. Oh, and I like went, oh boy, but they kept throwing money at me. So I took the job, and then, months later, what did I do? What did I do? Because it wasn't a good alignment.
No, that's funny. And that's so true. But, so the other thing that you shared with me, the kind of transition a little bit, is people. This is something that inspires you. You shared with me that, people are what keep you going and wanting to do better. So tell me what that means to you and why that inspires you.
Yeah, well, I've been blessed to work, with a number of great leaders over the years, and to learn from them, and then having, associates that I worked with, right, that are challenge me, coach me, and I've been able to, as I, longer in my career, be able to do more coaching and mentoring, and be able to work with folks. And honestly, at the end of the day, I think a lot of times the team you work on and the team you work with is much more important work-wise than the overall company, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to let your teammates down, even more than you don't want to let the company down. So I think that's led me to perform better, to learn from different folks that I've been able to interact with. And honestly, I think that's one of the challenges right now with the whole Zoom age, right? Where everyone's working remotely. I love working remotely, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I read an article not too long about financial institutions are saying one of the big problems they see now is that there's not that mentorship, there's not that leadership that are being grown, because you don't have that interaction. And some of it's just, spontaneous. It's my first job out of school. I remember I was caddy corner from the president of the company's office, and I could hear him on phone calls through, kind of through osmosis. I heard how he negotiated, how he treated people, and just, so much business knowledge that I think, unfortunately, we're all working remote now. You miss out on that. So some of that energy and stuff is lacking.
Yeah, that's an incredible point, because, you hear the saying, being at the right place at the right time with the right people, then the right things will happen. And making that comment about just being catty corner to the president's office, you're physically there, and you get that opportunity to hear the things that you otherwise wouldn't hear. And this Zoom culture that we're now in, unless you're on Zoom 24/7 with everybody, you're not going to have those moments where you get to overhear conversations, or, what they used to call the water cooler talk. There is something to that. I totally agree. And I think your dogs agree as well. That
I apologize. I put him in the back bedroom, but he doesn't seem to like to be there right now.
That's all right. Well, they want to be a part of the culture as well in the conversation. So I totally agree. But I think it's important, there's multiple points to what you said. There's right place, right time to overhear those things. There's the water cooler connections that, we used to have, being physically in the same space. And then, one of the other points that you brought up about your teams, there's kind of a micro culture within the teams that you work for. And I think, if that's a good fit and you're really developing that and working well with that, then that kind of connects to the larger culture. And, like you said, you don't want to let down your team. And then, when your team succeeds, then the company succeeds. So I think it's just kind of a ripple effect, if you will, where the microculture kind of ripples into the larger culture. I think that's so smart. John, man, we're getting close to the end of our time here, and I've loved the points that you've shared with us, and I think they've just been incredibly valuable. And I want to give you an opportunity to share with us a closing thought.
Yeah, well, closing thought. I guess, kind of advice, or, my view on things is, I think, over the years, right, I would encourage anyone just to continue to grow their network. I look back, over half the jobs I've received were because I worked with someone in the past that hired me at another company, wanted to work with me. Had that sort of, and then of course, when that happens, you really know the culture, they know what they're getting, you know what you're getting, but that just comes from, knowing people, working with people. So I'd say, culture over money, experience over money, build your career based on the people part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I think that's just, the culture piece is so powerful. And to also remember, and I'm loving your points to remember that, your family outside of career is just is more valuable than anything. So it's great points, John. You have been absolutely inspiring, and I thank you so much for your time. Guys, y'all make sure you keep an eye out for John Selindh, because this guy has done amazing things, and he's going to continue to do amazing things. And check him out on LinkedIn. I know he's there on LinkedIn. So guys, thank you so much for joining us, John. I appreciate you. And we will see you on the next episode of the Super Fantastic Exchange. Thank you, guys.